Welcome to The Strategist, episode 1867. I'm your host, Annalise Klingbeil, and with you, as always, Stephen Carter and Zain Velji.
Yo, yo, yo.
Hey, Zain.
Evening, guys.
Well, Carter and I have seen each other already.
Yeah, what happened? What were you doing at lunchtime today?
Well, we went and did the AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals Compass Conference. We did it as a freebie because, we're generous people. And it was a room full of fundraisers for great causes.
Carter couldn't negotiate a rate that was
a
high
freebie.
enough.
That doesn't sound like Stephen Carter.
Okay, let me let you in on a secret. If you don't meet Carter's rate, he will do it for free and bring his friends along. That's
Stephen Carter offers.
Is that what happened?
It pretty much was. But no, I mean, so I was blackmailed.
I literally got a
Blackmails.
I was blackmailed. My daughter asked me to do it. And
Which
if
one?
I didn't, Maddie. If I didn't do it, she was going to tell everybody secrets about me. So I felt I had no choice. And then I thought, you know what? Let's drag along all the strategists. So I invited Corey and Zain, and not you, Annalise.
Rose.
I feel bad about it now.
It's okay. Corey's a big deal.
Corey is kind of a big deal, and we all three agreed to do it. And guess who didn't bother to show up?
Corey Hogan. That
Fucking
guy. What
Didn't
else
even
is he
show up.
doing with his time? How did it go? I saw a photo of you asleep, possibly on a couch.
No, I had a little lie down because I felt like I was in a therapist's office talking about the hypocrisy of Danielle Smith's position with the federal government versus her position with municipalities, where she says basically the feds stay out of our business, and to municipalities she's like, I'm all up in your business.
So you laid down on a couch to make this point?
Well, he was in his happy place. I don't know if you know that, but what he just described right there.
I'll tell you something.
He
It
was
was
trying to hide
hilarious
an
in the
erection
moment.
from everyone, just trying to make sure that they wouldn't be able to notice that it was the topic that gets them the most excited.
Listen,
Other than cursing Corey's chances of cabinet, which, by the way, do you want to talk about which ministry he will get and put it on the record here?
me? No idea.
Yes.
I'm afraid I don't, because I don't want to curse his chances of getting cabinet. But
Go ahead, Carter. Just do it, please.
I did do that during the live show.
You did?
I did do that during the live show.
People,
but there was no
people got
recording.
a lot for the $0 speaking fee that they paid you.
I'll tell you, we did a great job, Zain, didn't we? Didn't we do a great job?
If they go to invitecartertospeak.com, they can put in their $0 bid of having Carter come to whatever event you are hosting. Your speaker fee is what, Carter? Let's just say $10,000. And if you can't meet that,
Zero.
you need to go to invitecartertospeak.com.
Okay, first of all, my speaking fee is $6,500.
That's actually not nearly enough.
That's
How am I charging more in my head for my speaking fee?
I mean, well, here's the trick with speaking fees.
In my head.
Here's the trick with speaking fees. Occasionally, someone has to pay it, right?
Occasionally.
Then it's a speaking fee. Otherwise, it's just a number on a page. So, we
Is
can
that
make
how
it
you-
$10,000.
Is that how you view money?
That's how Stephen Carter
Exactly.
operates.
Exactly.
Oh,
Just
God,
a
what are we
number
doing
on a
with that,
page.
Corey? If we need someone with financial credibility on
But
the
you
podcast.
can hire the strategist for only $3,500, which I think is
I don't know
pretty
how-
great.
You get Carter for $6,500, or all of us for $3,500, or you could get Carter for free at invitecartertospeak.com.
Seriously, when we started up the podcast, I was charging like more than all three of us together.
But now you
And
charge.
now look at you now. One of you is an MP. Carter's charging $0, and Zane's doing.
And Zane's
doing
still
good.
I've got my own
Zayn
show,
thing.
and whatever this is.
Good.
That's it. Please come visit. Come all.
Okay, guys, we've got things to talk about in addition to your lunchtime. Is there a live recording? Can people
This
hear?
is a good question.
Or
No,
the
I did not
$0
record
is okay.
We should have.
$0 did not get it recorded.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
well, you guys were doing that. Other things were happening. Today, our prime minister was meeting the president. Our premier was speaking. There was things going on. So let's get into
Before
it.
we do that, can we,
Tell me.
before we get into it,
Yeah,
can
tell
we just
me.
cover off for the video watchers that you are, in fact, in a closet?
I am in a
You're-
closet.
you're in a
really,
closet
I didn't even
right
know
now.
that.
You really care that I am in a closet. It's quiet.
It
It's
is-
good sound quality. Corey Hogan would be happy.
It's not good sound quality. It's from what I'm hearing. It's fine.
It's good
fine.
sound
Corey Hogan will
quality.
not-
There's no baby crying in the background. What's wrong with my closet, Stephen Carter?
We liked the baby crying in the background last time. That was
Says
cute.
the
It
man
was
who does
endearing.
not like babies in public settings.
I don't like babies in public settings,
Yeah.
but I do like babies in general.
Yeah. You do like babies in general. You like my
I do.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
babies are cute.
I'm in a closet and it's quiet and we're going to talk about Trump and Carney. Anything else you want to lay on the table, Carter, before we get into it?
No, I wanted to make sure the closet thing got handled.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in a closet. You can, if you're listening to this, there will be video you can watch. You can see the white walls behind me. And yeah, that's where I am. Okay, guys, let's talk about it. Trump, well, first segment, Trump and Carney had their first meeting today. Their first in-person meeting at the White House. For 2 months, Carney has framed himself as the best person to take on Trump. Tuesday's talk is being called the highest stakes discussion ever between a U.S. president and Canadian prime minister. So, Stephen Carter, how did Carney do? If you were to give him a grade for today's performance with Trump, what would you give him?
I would give him, what's the scale of the grade? Is
Grade,
it
like
an
letter
A, B, C?
grade, yeah. But pluses, minuses. F is the lowest typically. A plus
give him
is
a
the
pass.
highest. Nope.
I give him a
That's
pass.
not a letter.
Very British school system. That's very nice.
Not a
Yeah,
letter.
he did a fine job. He did a pass. And I'll tell you why he did a pass. He didn't once burst out laughing at the inane comments coming out of the president's mouth. He actually behaved himself like it was some sort of real, honest-to-God conversation with someone who wasn't a lunatic. And the fact that he was able to behave that way, I think was extremely impressive under the circumstances. So I give him a pass.
So a pass and extremely impressive. Zane, what's your letter grade?
So Carter's either become a tough grader or he's completely full of shit and hasn't seen this presser. Which one is it,
I've
Carter?
seen the presser. I've
No, you
seen the
fucking have
presser.
not.
I've seen the
Not a
presser.
pass.
I've seen
This
the
is
presser. I've seen the. I saw the interviews. I saw the interviews after. I spent a lot of time researching this.
And you give
You
it a
spent a lot
pass.
of time listening. Yeah, and you gave it a pass.
Okay, Zane,
Well,
what?
she gave me.
It's an
she's
A,
the one who
Annalise.
came up
An
with
A?
the.
It's an A.
Okay.
This is a very good job
Why?
by Mark Carney.
Tell us.
I think there's a number of reasons. I think it starts with last week at the press conference last week, which leads into the bilateral today. The press conference set the stakes and the expectations perfectly, saying that don't expect results. And the bilateral, for a number of reasons, where he asserted defense of Canadian sovereignty multiple times, had a great line that looked extremely organic after Trump talked about real estate and being a real estate developer. So great research on his office's part, great execution on his part, saying, Mr. President, like real estate. It didn't seem like a canned line where he brought up real estate. He said, you mentioned real estate. The White House isn't for sale. Buckingham Palace isn't for sale. Canada isn't for sale. He was funny, which I think really mattered when Trump was teasing before Carney could say a word, where Trump was talking for like 15 minutes in monologue saying there's a big announcement Friday. Carney's like, I'm on the edge of my seat. I care more about that than this.
But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here. Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm on the edge of my seat, actually.
I thought that was extremely funny. When Trump said never say never, Carney just looked at the cameras like it was an episode
Never,
of The
never,
Office and was
never.
like never. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And he picked his spots, right? Like he picked his spots. One of the most important things in politics we talk about, whether it be longitudinally over months or years, or in the moment of a 25-minute bilateral, is when do you swing and when do you not swing? And if the criticism that Carney is left with that he didn't swing enough, but the swings that he made contact, then I'm more than happy to take that criticism if I'm Mark Carney. The swings that he made every single time, the ball hit wood and he at least got on base, Carter.
Sounds
And
like
so
a pass to me.
Sounds like an
Sounds
A
like
to me,
a
Carter.
pass
Sounds
to
like
me.
Carter has not seen this. How would you have coached him or done this better? I thought this was a clear articulation
What
of
do
our
you think are
priorities.
the other options besides
Effective
pass?
Pick a letter, Carter.
Pick a fucking letter, Carter. This was. I think this was a.
I give him
I know Mark,
96%.
so I'm hard on Mark, and so
Okay.
I'm giving him an A. I was actually expected to be. Did you watch this live, Carter? You and I were texting, and I was like, "Fuck, this is." I was like on the edge of my seat, being like, "I hope he doesn't fuck this up." He not only didn't fuck it up, I thought he nailed it.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention that is that a lot of us were tuned in live because the opportunity to fuck it up with the volatility that is Trump. Because let's be clear, a fuck up in this situation is not necessarily Mark Carney, a trained corporate professional, a trained, public intellectual central banker saying the wrong thing. A fuck up in this situation is a wrong look. is a wrong smirk, is nodding your head at the wrong time, right? Because Trump would say something normal and then say something inane and then look over to Carney. And you got to be extremely careful in the moment that you're not nodding along while Donald Trump is saying Chrystia Freeland fucking sucked at her job.
Thing. Yeah.
Or whatever, right? And there was a few moments, and one thing Carney does not have is a poker face. Like, we've seen that throughout his, like, the last 6 months. Mark Carney does not have a poker face. But man, did he put one on today. And he was close to cracking a few times and sometimes couldn't help himself. But none of it was penalty worthy. None of it was disastrous enough. But the stakes were extremely high, and I think he did really well.
Okay, so you say an A. Carter, did you say 96%? Did you give
96%.
a percentage?
That is,
Okay, that's
in
good.
fact,
Okay, so that's like an A
pass.
plus, is it not?
It's like a pass.
It's
a pass.
Above a pass. A
It's a
pass is
pass.
50%.
It's a very British
I don't
system.
think
You
you
can get a
understand.
96,
Above
but
a
you're
pass?
just the same.
The pass is you either pass or you fail.
You think he
And I think
passed? He did
he
what he
passed.
needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are. I mean, all the things that Zain said about. I mean, I really love the never going. Like the never.
Literally like it was an
Yeah,
office
like-
episode.
yeah.
Just being like, I'm going to just look directly into the camera like Jim and be like, yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
not going to
I
happen.
mean-
Like Michael was speaking and Jim was like, oh my God, like that's just so you guys know, like it's going to be never.
Yeah,
I thought it
and
was
so,
very,
And the question was asked of him in the press conference if he had asked Donald Trump during the private meeting to stop referring to Canada as the 51st state. And one of the things I like about Mark Carney is he's sharp, also with the media a little bit, right? And basically he said, yes, I did say that. And then they said, well, what were the
Yeah.
exact words? And he was like,
What you just said. Yeah.
yeah, like ask me a follow. Like, do you have a follow up? No. Okay, let's go to the next person. And then someone finally realized, hey, we didn't get an answer to actually what he said. So I think that Mark Carney is in control of his own situations. That may come off a little bit assholery when it comes to the actual communications with the media, but I think it's really solid because he's giving solid answers. He's giving kind of yes, no, direct answers that are hard to misinterpret and difficult to take and rebelize, turn into a true North quote or something along those lines.
there's something here, and Annalise, I'd probably get your expertise on this than mine, but I'll give you guys a premise to chew on, which is, unlike what maybe modern day media training would say, which is take the key message, package it, and take it. It seems like he's almost thinking about the answer in the moment, which is really a high wire act, unless you're someone like him who has run a lot of his campaign, and I'm not saying he's devoid of politics. That's not what I'm saying at all. But run a lot of his campaign based on, I'm just going to make the call. What I feel is the policy. What I intellectualize is the outcome. We're also hearing about this as it relates to everything from his priority set, even including that press conference last week, talking to some high-level liberals. Their answer was, yeah, thanks for the congrats, man, but that was just Mark Carney. Right? Like, thanks, but like he literally has an agenda of what he wants to do. He's telling you in his own words. And I feel like he treats the media in the same way. It's not over packaged. It's not over rehearsed. It's very much kind of, I'm thinking in the moment because I care. And it's, Carter, like when you're free to kind of just respond and the stakes are relatively low, it feels like that's what he's doing. I think it could be a bit gaffe prone when like he's got a bit of a track record and there's things in motion and timelines aren't being met and all that sort of stuff happens. But for the moment, it's not only refreshing, it's novel. And I want to make sure we separate what's politically refreshing, but with what's also politically novel, because we've had 10 years of Trudeau and we've had half a decade of Poilievre, two very different communication styles from Carney.
So you think it works saying the
it works for
presence
now.
of media? Yeah.
I think it works for now. And I think ultimately what will end up happening, just like in politics where your circle of trusted advisors starts big and then ends narrow, you start becoming more risk mitigating and you start becoming more defensive as your track record builds, because you're trying to protect something behind you, not just run free with what's ahead of you. And he's got the flexibility to say no to things, to do one-word answers, to do all these novel communication things and lay out priorities. But at some point, they're going to be late on something. They're going to poorly execute something. It just happens. It's not because Mark Carney's not good at what he does. It's because it's government, and it's a slow-moving machine, regardless of your ambitions as a prime minister, as a singular dude or person. And so I suspect a more defensive communication style that's going to come, but I think right now what we're seeing is the right strategy combined with novelty.
Carter, do you think it works? Because that was interesting to me about today was so much focus, obviously, on the meeting with Trump, but then the speaking to the media after. And to Zain's point, it is new, it is novel. It's a very different way of interacting and speaking to media than we've seen for the past decades.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does work. And again, I'll take Zane's point that it is novel. That's an excellent point. It is new. It is unique. But more than that, I think it is effective as well. I mean, so much of media relations right now is being succinct, being able to get your message across in as few words as possible. And with that, I'll stop.
Look at you. Look at you demonstrating what you're saying. What about, and Zain, you brought it up, but the line, and I saw this, it looked like it was getting a lot of coverage, the real estate one. We're in the White House right now, not for sale, talk to the owners of Canada, blah, blah, blah. Do you guys think that's and Zain, maybe you can speak to this if you know Mark super well, but like, is that the sort of thing that you have a lot
the best,
of
actually.
So well?
And I'm going to just give so everyone can know him as well. Here's his phone number, +44. Okay, I should give the rest.
Beep that.
Go ahead.
The rest out.
Yeah.
Like, do you? There's certain politicians or certain people that you would practice those lines with beforehand, but then it's that delivery of trying to not make it rehearsed. To your point,
sure.
The way he brought it up, the way he said it, it just seemed natural. People liked it. Is there a lot of strategy and prep that goes into that one line and wanting that to be in the leads and in the headlines?
I think yes and yes. I'd be surprised if there was no prep on it. I think something like that starts with the seed of an answer. And of course, there's multiple ways of doing it. You saw that in the press conference afterwards, where he was at the Canadian Embassy answering a similar question. He asserted that in a much more aggressive, assertive tone to create a secondary clip of it. But in the moment, when you're sitting beside the president and being hosted, he was also Canadian polite. And he used something, and I think, what really gave him the go-ahead to keep going was that within the first second of saying it, Trump agreed. And you could almost see that Trump, like, the respect kind of seemed real. I'm really curious if Carter, it seemed like it was almost like not even respect. It was like, I'm kind of jealous of this guy. I don't want to disappoint this guy. Like, Trump is a child, right?
Yeah.
And Mark Carney is like a serious person. Like, he's actually what a successful business person looks like in some ways. Right? Trump is not read Lucky Loser. Trump is not a successful business person. He's not. He was handed an opportunity and he squandered that opportunity, and everything else since then has been made out of fairy dust and The Apprentice to create this image of Donald Trump, is the short version of it. But there's a level of respect that Trump had to him where he agreed within the first couple of seconds, which allowed Carney to kind of very loosely kind of continue that analogy. I've been in situations where even if the politician is a masterful communicator, masterful communications and organic communications are two very different things, right? And this goes back to a world that Carter and I love deeply, which is the world of comedy. Most people come to watch a stand-up comedian perform their hour, knowing fully that this hour has been performed at local theaters or comedy clubs near you, but they want to feel like they're hearing it from the first time stream of consciousness, like they just came up with it. In fact, the art form doesn't work. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel connective. It doesn't feel like we're sharing a common experience if they don't have that the sort of underlying foundation of ease, of organic, of I just came up with this sort of thing. Everyone knows that they didn't. And I think this press conference has that parallel. That line has that parallel, which is that everyone knows, ourselves included, that the team prepped a version for him. But what worked in that moment was two elements. Number one, he picked up on the real estate side, and you saw how assertively Carney was to get in on there.
Yeah.
Because I think he saw an opportunity to be like, I'm going to make mention of it now. I'm going to talk about 51st State over and over, but now's the time. You mentioned real estate. You mentioned the border. The team had probably also, Team Carney had probably also said, every time Trump mentions the imaginary line, he goes right into this thing, and that's where you get in. And so I do think this was rehearsed. I do think that it was put together, but the execution on his part, the way he kind of spaced it, the way he looked up, the way he kept going once Trump said yes. The way he added examples, not just well scripted, well executed. So it's a very long way to say yes, which I believe is what this podcast is about, is saying very simple, short things in extremely long ways. Is that the message to take, Carter? I believe it is.
Is.
I think that was very clippable, my piece.
That was,
I think we should clip
that
it.
was perfect.
I
Zane.
heard at least 4 30-second spots in there. That was
Yeah.
good.
Listen, I'm trying to create content for the pod. That's what I'm up to.
Yeah,
You know what?
it's
The video's
hours
there.
and hours.
The video's there.
It's timely, Zane, because my sister, who's not a frequent listener, listened to your last episode, which people have been giving rave reviews, and her feedback was it was too long. I said,
Okay, well,
do you have any other feedback? That was her feedback.
No,
last
don't
episode
care
though,
about
people
her.
love it. The Corey Hogan episode, people are into it. Carter, how do you prepare for something like this? To your point, Trump's a lunatic, and this could have gone very, very differently. Even to the point that, like, a few minutes before the meeting started, he's posting on Truth Social about this and that and argy bargy, all caps, like that type of thing. How do you prepare for meetings with very unpredictable people?
Well, I mean, I come into the podcast every time wondering what
Unpredictable,
exactly is going to happen,
right?
and I never know. No, I think that when you're going into a meeting, I used to work for very
Tell us.
eccentric fella.
Name names.
I'm not going to name names. But when I'm working with this eccentric fella, you just never knew where you were going to go. You never knew what the meeting was going to be like.
Do I know this eccentric fellow? I'm guessing.
Corey's not here to tell you not to name them, so you can name
I'm
them.
guessing
Carter.
one person. I'm guessing one person.
No, you're not guessing. You're
No,
not
no, I'm
guessing.
not live. I'm not live.
Yeah,
I'm not
you
live.
know exactly who it is.
Okay, we're gonna telepathically say the name to each other.
No, we're not
right
going
now.
to do
No,
that.
telepathically.
No,
Do you know what telepathically
because-
means?
Not out loud,
Yeah, but you're
Carter.
gonna say
Okay,
it out
I got it.
loud.
No, I got it. I totally
I know
got it.
who
Oh
you
my god,
are.
he was
I-
such a fucking nut job. Oh my god.
Anyways, in so doing, every time I go into the meeting, I never knew where it was going to go. And that was, on some levels, it's an entertaining challenge because you just never know what's going to happen. You can be as prepared as you want to be, but really what you got to be is like when you're in sport and you're doing sports and you're in the moment and you can, and all you're doing is responding to the stimuli that are around you. That's what Mark Carney was doing today. He was in the moment. He was responding to the stimuli that was around him. Zane's made a good point about prep, but really this is more than just prep. This is the ability to hang out with people who are a little bit crazy. And I would argue that almost all billionaires are a little bit crazy because you have to be a little bit crazy.
Maybe
to get
he's
to
had
that
batting
level.
practice on this already. You're
I
right.
think that he's gone around a few times on dealing with some uniquely eccentric individuals.
Okay. What about body language, Zane? In terms of the prep, you thought he nailed it there. He was good there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the body language for me was really all about like the facial expressions. And Mark Carney, like I said, does not have a great poker face. He really doesn't. So even when Trump was talking about all the gold that now the Oval Office has, Carney was like near laughter, which made me laugh because I was like, that is so fucking crazy. Trump is like, welcome to the Oval Office. We've now got gold. And Carney's like, uh-huh. And he's just like trying not to laugh. I heard from someone who was inside the room that the Canadian delegation was like stone cold the whole time. And I feel like they were all trained to like be stone cold the entire time, including Carney. But I think his body language was fine. His cadence was fine. His tone was fine. He was very much in the reaction mode, right? He had a couple of things to say. He picked his spots. He hit solid signals. I think on the real estate line, he hit the home run on that one. But everything else was body language. How do you sit there for a 7-minute monologue about 10 topics, of which 3 of them the president can refer to you on, but not give you a chance to speak on, but make sure you're paying fucking attention, because if you're caught nodding to the wrong shit, that's the meeting. Like, so the body language, I think, was so much more important, arguably, than the scripted line or the reasserting Canadian sovereignty, because you could be caught sleeping for just a moment, and Trump moves on to the next topic, and doesn't give you a chance, and he may not even want you to audibly respond, but you're caught like smiling, agreeing, whatever. That becomes a story, and he did not make that a story. And I know that seems extremely small, but the stakes and the pumping up of the stakes were so high. that I think that was also a good job on his part.
It's wild times that we're in, that's the bar, right? That this is a meeting between two world leaders, and like that body language piece is a huge part of it.
But hasn't it always been? Like when you think back,
we've also seen a crazy version of this meeting.
Yeah.
Mere months ago. I think that also, like, in same setting, same location, everything. We've seen what the worst, arguably, version of this meeting can look like.
Well, is that part of the prep? And I think you mentioned this thing, but that low expectations to go into it, right? Setting the stage for people to have those low expectations, so that when you don't screw up, it's a 96%. It's doing good.
I think the Carney expectations where he really nailed it was the expectations of results today, right? Because the Conservatives could have driven the agenda, despite kind of being in their own turmoil. They could have driven the agenda saying Mark Carney is going to, if Mark Carney does not cancel the tariff deal on Tuesday when he goes, that's a major fuck up. And by doing that press conference Friday, setting the stakes that no solutions will be had here, and this will take as long as it takes and not a day longer. I think that was the proper setting of the stakes. I still think the stakes were extremely high on all things body language, statement, all that sort of stuff in the room over those 30 minutes.
Carter, go ahead.
Do you think that, like, when Donald Trump gets briefed, one of the things his aides tell him is the net worth of the individual that he's talking to? You know, like, what's Zelensky's net worth? $15, $20? You know, like, it's not going to be great. But what's Mark Carney's net worth? X, right? X is big. And do you think that changes the way that the interaction occurs? Because I think that it changes the interaction. I think that Mark Carney walks into that room with such a leg up on Justin Trudeau, with such a leg up on Zelensky, with such a leg up on Macron. Like, it is...
So you just think the respect is there off the bat in a way that it's not for others?
I think that Donald Trump respects money because he equates money with power. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, that's why I think he likes dictators, because dictators make themselves rich, right? That, you know, the using the state to power the individual and to profit the individual is always seen as being beneficial by Donald Trump. And here's Mark Carney walking in. He's already used the system, if you will, to make himself successful. And I think that Donald Trump values that. I think that that's one of the reasons that the meeting went so well. I mean, did Mark Carney bring a different message than Justin Trudeau?
No.
Or a different message than Chrystia Freeland brought? No. But he is a different messenger. And that different messenger is wrapped up in $100 bills.
Zain?
What the fuck was that last part?
We got to clip that. Carter trying to sound young and hip. That went very poorly.
I think
do it again?
Yeah, do it again, Carter.
Add a bit more bars so we can make the clip really take off.
No,
Carter?
it's going to come out like much worse.
Yeah, and a little bit more racist.
Only because you make it racist, Zain. Only because you make it racist.
I don't see race.
Okay.
I don't see a card.
Last question on this. Is there anything... There was criticism that he didn't speak enough, saying you kind of addressed that it was a good amount. But for Carter, for your 96 to get to 100, or Zain, your A to get to an A+, was there anything tangible that could have been done differently? And maybe the answer is no, because you didn't want the first one to be like too perfect, because there will be more meetings.
Go ahead, Zain.
From my perspective, I think ordering was also a matter of what came first. If they had their meeting first and this second, then I think he could have spoken up more. Both guys came into this pretty cold. Now, Trump is never cold. He could just walk in and just fucking start, talking about inane bullshit, at any point, including Obama's library being a disaster, and the Trump offering him to fix it. But from Carney's perspective, you've got one choice. You got a couple of choices. You could pick your spots where you can make the points that you need to, or you could start poking in on everything. And you've seen versions of this. Macron and Starmer jumped in a lot more. But the message that they were trying to bring, other than making sure that Trump heard about Ukraine and that their solidarity with Ukraine, was less significant and less existential than what we were trying to prevent. annexation, tariffs, and a renewed partnership. And so I think he chose the right spots to hit the right notes rather than swinging for everything.
Carter, what could have
You know what really bothered me?
improved it? Tell us.
And I know that he had to do this, but this is what bothered me.
Transformational president?
Transformational president.
Yeah, me too.
Drove me crazy. I understand why he did it. I understand. And then to say, I've been elected to do the same type of thing in Canada. He has absolutely not been elected to do the same type of thing in Canada. It's in fact the opposite. We want to be protected from the transformational change that's happening in the United States. I really disliked that. I understand why he did it. I would not have counseled him not to do it, but I found it very off-putting from my individual point of view.
Was there a different way he could have done it? Like that he could have gotten the same point across but not used? Like, do you have a better way he could have done it? I feel like he had to do it.
I think you could have said he's a once-in-a-generation president.
For me, I agree with Carter. The reason it bothered me is because it is sucking up to Trump, obviously, and it's clear and it's on the front end, and it's literally what the White House used they literally have a montage of images with that quote from Carney underneath it. I also think, if I'm giving Carney a bit of grace, transformational can also be a pretty neutral term. Yeah. Kind of like consequential and generational. Now, I don't think it wouldn't be the word of preference to use for Mussolini, but he was transformational. Oh my God. Pol Pot, other words for sure, maybe 20 of them before transformational. Idi Amin, transformational. So listen, I actually Hitler,
Stalin. Let's go. Let's bring them all in.
But, and then this might be trying to defend him too much. I believe he had to do it. The meeting could not have diffused the 51st state stuff without that tone and tenor. I think they probably made that calculation very early, and that was a very scripted piece, and that looked and sounded very scripted, which I think is just fine. I also think the word choice was deliberate, and you could see that as such.
Okay. Let's leave that one there, guys. Move on to our next segment. Let's talk about Alberta.
Oh dear. Do we have to?
The elephant in the room, Stephen Carter.
Or British Columbia?
We're talking about our transformational leader, Danielle Smith.
Yeah, it's exactly a good segue, right?
You may have heard of her.
Guys, yesterday, Monday, she did this address to Albertans, 18 minutes, 3 p.m. television address. Followed that up today, stayed in the headlines here with a presser with journalists, took questions from journalists. Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, says she does not support Alberta separating, but she supports any citizen-led petition that gets the 177,000 signatures required to trigger a petition in, I think it's 121 days. They've got less signatures, more days because of Bill 54. Yeah. In the address yesterday, she had a list of demands for Carney. She's going to tour the province with an Alberta Next panel. Lots going on here. Stephen Carter, why is she doing this?
Why is she doing this? It's an easy way to score points, and I think
with
that
who,
she's
her
intellectually,
base?
I think part of her base. There is a group of people for whom separation is valuable. I've numbered it at around 250,000 people in the province of Alberta. It polls somewhere around 20%, which is, but I think that's people who just are angry, saying these things, who haven't really thought through separation. But there's a small group of people who've thought through separation and who think it's a really good idea. And Danielle Smith has decided to, through her own leadership challenges and inabilities, she has chosen to put herself in a position where she gets to use this weapon against the federal government the same way that she perceives the way that Quebec used the weapon of separation to get whatever it wanted. So it's kind of like watching a grade school student try and figure out how to do debating. They can't really do it, so they just get loud. And this is the equivalent of Danielle Smith being unable to communicate effectively and get what she wants. So she's just decided to throw separation into, and for her to say that she doesn't support separation when she's taking all of this effort, she's the one who lowered the threshold. She's the one who extended the number of days. She's the one who's making it easier for a citizen-led referendum that could cost us dearly. Even the thought of separation, just the thought of separation is going to cost us jobs. It's going to cost us in the economy. And she should know that if she has any degree of awareness of what happens in the rest of the world when people start musing about leaving their home countries. Zain brought up a great example today, of Brexit. The foolish meanderings of a few people suddenly turns into a mantra for British people who think that they're getting, pissed on, and it winds up destroying their economy for what will be a generation. That is just a full self-own, and it is such a useful parallel to the paradigm that Danielle Smith is creating for herself. And I think that there's only one explanation for it, and is that she's just not intellectually capable of understanding the risks and the tenuous reward that she's playing with when she plays with this type of ammunition.
Zain, do you agree? I mean, we've talked about before on the show, she's strategically smart. She thinks ahead. What is she trying to accomplish?
I don't know if it's anything she's particularly trying to accomplish other than I read it a bit differently. Like, I think Carter's points are true, but I do think that separatism is always a card she had to play if she knew the other issues were going to be damning to her. And I do think that this is as much of a big fucking channel changer than it is, and then it also is everything Carter's mentioned. There is something to be said about, while she's doing okay in the polls right now, at least from the numbers that we have seen, that the scandal on healthcare, the scandal on corruption should and could be government-ending scandals. And frankly, I think Carter, if they were 10 years ago, they would be.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, these would be
100%.
scandals that would take down a government. The fact is, most people don't even know about the recent developments about the justice minister's personal relationship with this guy. Like, there's so many things that are problem defining. So the cynical part of me thinks separatism was always a card she could play if there was something coming down the pipeline that would be a big fuck you, and if she wanted to just get off the page. In addition to weaponizing it, obviously, creating and rallying her base, having plausible deniability built in, which I think she's trying to do, which is complete fucking bullshit. If things go badly, she can always be like, "Oh, I was just respecting democracy." I think that's what I was doing the whole time, avoiding accountability in that way. And then I think there's also an element of like keeping opponents off balance, right? Keeping the NDP off balance as they try to chase down the corrupt care angle on healthcare. What part of their resources do they devote to separatism? What part of it is shadow boxing on their part? Are they spread too thin around true issues? One of which she may never get the blame on. So it's one of those things where I think she's obviously trying to be strategic, but I did like Carter feel like there's a chance she may have just fucking overplayed her hand. Like, this is a huge problem for Pierre Poilievre and puts him in a terrible position, likely turns a lot of the CPC against her, even locally in Alberta. And the vast majority of Albertans still oppose this. We may have hit a new high water mark, nearly 65% of people opposing this. It's a 30-ish for it. Yeah. But that's still relatively low. My concern for her, though, is exactly what I mentioned today in when we were doing our lunch show, Carter, which is we have seen and we know people, and we might be those people that can turn a 35% issue into 50% plus one issue.
Yeah.
Brexit is a great example. Yeah. There were no real geniuses behind Brexit. There was just a really weak opposition proposing it, combating it. And they didn't necessarily have, it's not that they were inherently weak. They were either being like, there's no way this is a real thing, or they didn't have a great singular oppositional point versus The pro-Brexit side chose a one singular, we'll put money in your back in your pocket for healthcare. Remember those fucking buses? That's all they said. That was literally all you get from Brexit. And separatism, as we talk about it right now, is this big, insane cloud. But what happens if we boil down separatism to one singular, easy to digest data point? And the opposition comes with 55 reasons to not separate, and the separatism side has one easily digestible point. That is a reality that takes a 35-point issue and makes it a 50% plus one issue. And that's where I think she may have fucking overplayed her and flirting with real fire here.
Exactly. But here's the other thing, though, Zain. You're forgetting that there was also another thing that they didn't talk about and didn't put on buses, but certainly was one of the Brexit pieces, and that is you won't have to deal with any more immigrants, right? No more Polish people coming in and taking your jobs. No more, immigrants from South Asia, or no more immigrants from Asia, right? Like the racism that was the casual racism that underpinned this. And this is one of the things that underpins our separatist thing, is if the French could do it, if the Quebecers could do it, then fuck it, we're doing it too, right? And it's got this kind of, they're getting one over on us because we send them all of our money for transfer payments, which has been the lie of the last 30 years that the Klein started to tell us, and we've all bought into. We are just as guilty of, we do transfers in Alberta in the exact same fashion that there's transfers that are done in Canada. People who make more money pay more money, and people who make less money pay less money. And we all agree with those principles. And yet, when it comes to the federal scene, fuck those guys in Quebec. The average income's what? $80,000 in Quebec. It's $120,000 here. Oh, fuck them.
Right? But let's be clear, right?
My numbers are wrong on that, by the way.
There is a historical precedent to this. You can sell big, crazy, low polling things by placing them into a small, simple nugget. And that's what could happen here. This is why I think she's really playing with fire. Because first, let's talk about the threshold, Carter. 177,000 in 120 days, doable. Like actually doable. If you're organized, doable.
It's tricky, but it certainly could be done. What you do is you pre-organize,
correct?
And you make sure that you have all your people ready to go.
And the clock starts, and then you do all the stuff.
Yeah.
Not like we've done it, but like when you look at the math and you look at the organization, and if there is tacit consent by the premier, which I classify this week as being doable.
Totally doable.
Because let's be clear what she said. I've reduced the bar and I'll take this shit seriously and I'll put it as a referendum. Right? So tacit consent. If I'm being charitable, which I am. But we've seen this across the world. Trump is an example of this. Trump re-election is an example of this. All the crazy stuff right now that we are seeing, no one really voted for, but it was a price of eggs and future opportunity. Dialing down something crazy in the crazy package and selling a small, simple version of it, or a small, simple subset of it. Same with like when India demonetized their money. Do you guys remember this? They literally position as government corruption as fighting back against black money, and they just invalidated currency notes for people. And we see this in political in governance. We see this in elections, and we've seen it very recently. People will buy a broader crazy package, a broader package of things that they do not like if it includes one thing that they really do like. And my worry is that the separatists find that one thing. And my worry is that the opposition is saying all of the reasons against it versus fighting it on that one thing. The separatism fight in Alberta, should it happen, may be on something entirely unrelated or directly not related to separatism. That is my prediction. It will be a ballot box question about it, but it will be a debate about something like healthcare. It will be a debate about something like economic upside for youth or economic diversification. They'll find a 70-30 issue to fight the 30-70 issue, which is separatism. That is how they will sell this thing. And that is why Danielle Smith, am I wrong, Carter?
No,
that is why Danielle Smith has propose something as crazy because there is a pathway for this, and she may have actually overplayed her hand in this regard in terms of potentially being a co-author of this outcome.
Okay, lots to go into, but just take one step back. Why now? Like you talked about the channel change and the distraction for the opposition. Lots
Carney.
going on right now. Why coming out so hot right now? Carney's your thoughts on
Corey
that?
Hogan.
Corey Hogan and Carney.
Corey Hogan and Mark Carney.
I want Carter to explore the Corey Hogan bit just a bit more.
Yeah,
Corey
get into
Hogan
it.
won.
Corey Hogan won, and he's going to be our minister of.
Of what?
It's going to be a tough call on that. You know, I wouldn't want to be in the room trying to pick that cabinet. It's tough. It's hard to pick these cabinets. You know, they're tricky little devils.
Don't let him off the hook.
I'm not going to.
He's not. Just imagine what Corey has said to him about not
You know what Corey
ruining
hasn't said
his
anything to me.
chances. Carter, why you were nodding or shaking your head? You were doing something there. The timing now is just because of Carney. She's coming in hot.
I mean, she had Trudeau exactly where she wanted him. She does not have Mark Carney where she wants him, and so she has just decided to ramp up the rhetoric one more level and really push as hard as she could in order to try and get whatever concessions she can. Keep in mind that essentially this whole separatism argument is wrapped in a list of 8 or 9 big demands.
Yes,
access to tidewater ports. You know, Alberta and Saskatchewan don't have access to tidewater ports. Well, what are we going to do? Dig a fucking ditch? Like, we don't have access to ports. Like, that's just our reality. But she wants access to ports, unfettered access to ports. What else does she want, Zain? I'm trying to remember the other.
Oh man, let me look it up. I have it here.
But these demands, you know, essentially eliminate the cap on carbon, eliminate all the carbon taxes.
So there's equalization, there's a repeal of environmental legislation, and the tanker ban, rollback of clean electricity, consultation export tariffs, respecting Indigenous treaty rights. Okay.
Yeah.
And creation of a negotiation team and a sovereignty panel.
Yeah.
No government in their right mind is going to give her most of this.
Yeah, I mean,
Or can.
It's not even in their power to give in some regards. Like
Yes.
this is a lunatic who has clearly lost her ability to figure out what a proper negotiating stance is, and has decided to hold the federal government hostage, and then has done so with the gun of separation held at her own head.
So play it out though. So she's said this. I mean, she said today, I don't support this, but I support the referendum.
It is bullshit.
This is David Cameron saying he doesn't support Brexit, but bringing it up, giving it legs, and allowing it to walk all over him, and then saying at the end of it, well, I guess I have to resign. You fucking idiot.
But
you know,
play it out
Preston
though.
Manning saying the West wants in, and in so doing, isolating the West for a generation. These people don't understand the tools with which they are playing because they're intellectually unable to. And each one of them winds up getting shot in the foot, or in some cases, like David Cameron and Preston Manning, shot right in the fucking noggin.
Okay, thanks, Carter. But
You're welcome.
Play it out. It's out there. It's out there. She's lit the fire under people to go. You know, as Zain says, start doing the pre-planning. Have your date, try for the 170. What clearly very dangerous, very concerning for a lot of people. But to Zain's point, what does the side that says we don't want to separate, what should they be doing right now?
We should organize our own petition.
Talk to me. Walk me through it.
So 80% of a separate, we should organize our own petition for something, right? And take the wind right out of them. Because it doesn't even matter if the petition's successful. If the petition isn't successful, it just becomes another example of how hard it is to do these things. And we can actually get a citizen-led referendum on something that actually matters, right? We could instill municipal rights, or we could instill health funding guarantee. We could do something around post-secondary education. We could do something around motherhood and apple pie if we wanted to, that would take the wind right out of the separatism. Like one of the things we could do is that every lottery dollar goes to healthcare, or every dollar of royalties goes into the Alberta Savings Trust Fund. Whatever else that we wanted to do, but there's something out there that would ultimately take the wind out of the separatist ability to sign a petition, because people wouldn't know which petition we're doing. Which petition is this? What's going on? Is this the healthcare petition? Let me sign the healthcare petition. Right?
I have a slight. I'm like, I agree with Carter that a counter petition allows activity to happen and potentially puncture the balloon. I also think there's a more head-on way to do it, which is to have people like Carter and I not do it. And what I mean by that, and this goes back to something being like, it matters who your opponents are. If the natural opponent on this are the NDP, this is not a winner for the NDP in a head-to-head. In the sense that they can't be the natural opponents. Carter, you almost want to have a scenario where the natural opponents are conservatives.
Yeah.
You want this.
Monty
you almost want to be like
finds a soul.
You literally be like, Jason Kenney, here are the keys. Here's the economic and business leaders. Here's the economic leaders of the party of the province of Western Canada.
Yeah.
Here's former conservatives, right? You actually want to be really careful who forms the opposition here. And in some ways, if this can be a battle of conservatism, bastardized versus not, which is not a charitable way of putting it, that is actually what leads to potential success here. If this becomes a bunch of us, Annalise, Calgary Confederation latte-sipping fucking losers, as they would call us, right?
Yeah.
Corey Hogan voters, as they would call us. That's good. It's exciting. It's a fundraising opportunity for the Alberta NDP. But if they're the natural opponents of it, I'm not sure this gets the legs that it needs, even if it's a 35% issue today, 25% issue today.
Yeah, because the right comms takes the 35% to 45 to 55.
This has to be a unity, patriotic choice, conservative argument against separatism.
But do you see?
That's how I see who needs the keys.
But do you see that happening? Because then you're getting a split amongst
Not my world.
conservatives.
Well, I mean, that's an ideal situation.
Yeah.
Also, it's an ideal outcome, right? For someone like the New Democrats, both in terms of the short and the long term, depending on what the long term leads to from a partisan political party perspective. But I also think it's the right move. Now, is there appetite? Not my world. Like, Carter, you may have a better sense of if there's real appetite for the actual conservative crowd to mobilize against this. But to me, I think the opponent here really, really matters.
I mean, if you want to be the next premier of the province, this is a great opportunity. If you want to be the next conservative premier.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good.
Because let's just pick on poor Michelle Rempel Gardner, just because she's fun to pick on. She's not going anywhere in federal politics. If she wants to become the next premier of the province of Alberta, she picks this thing up and she starts organizing against it, doing a counter petition of some sort, keep Alberta in confederation or whatever the heck she chooses. She comes after it. She starts to fight against this thing. She would be able to round up enough members that she would be able to defeat. She could even organize against Danielle Smith at conventions. She could organize against Danielle Smith in a really dangerous way for Danielle. And if she, and it's there for her. It's not like she's going to be in cabinet. She's got another fucking 4 years sitting in the backbenches. Why not take a shot at Danielle Smith? Danielle's now opened up her flank, and by playing with the separatist stuff, has probably pissed off a good half of the caucus, a good half of the UCP base.
There has to be a signal that this is dividing conservatism. And I think New Democrats and others need to be able to take advantage of that opportunity, because if New Democrats or progressives become the de facto opposition, this has a chance of breaking on partisan lines, even if the question is fucking separatism. Right? Like, I have to qualify that. Even if the question is as insane as separatism, people can fall into their right-left divides, and then we're in a coin flip.
Yeah,
or worse.
But do you think they do that? Like, you know progressives, I know progressives. Do you think?
No, I think they'll certainly take advantage of the moment and push back and like frame Canada, and I think they have to do all those things. There's just also a natural issue here that by being the singular opposition, there's two issues. By being the singular opposition and then being the singular opposition that has 50 reasons against it, which is also a progressive thing that we do, which is we find all of the robust reasons why separatism, and all of them valid and well-researched, and brand and economy and upside and confederation and indigenous and whatever. We can name 45 others. That's the issue. One opponent, 50 arguments is bad. Multiple opponents, singular argument is good.
Carter, how worried should I be? How worried should people be? Like listening to this, listening to the remarks that were said yesterday, listening to, there was one journalist asking a question today that really was like, this is serious and this is what you're saying. You've been around a while. You're old. You've lived through lots of different things. Like how worried are you about this?
This could be the most devastating year in Alberta history.
I'm with Carter.
And
I'm with Carter. I'm not.
This is
I'm
serious
not into
stuff,
alarmist bullshit. Because we do what we do, we can kind of see, and frankly, we've seen what we've seen. You can kind of see how this gets there.
So what's for those people listening who are also worried?
It's not naturally going to go there. Yeah.
Who want to do some of who are riding the high of like Corey Hogan just getting elected, right? Feeling like they've done something, they've made change, and now we're dealing with this. Like, I don't know, Carter. Give me your grandfatherly advice.
Here are my things that I would recommend. If if wherever you are, get involved in your municipal politics. The municipalities are going to have a huge voice in any coming referendum or a plebiscite. The municipalities are organized right now to fight back against the provincial government, and they need to do that really hard. If you're a conservative, you've got to start find your conservative leaders that are going to start standing up against this separatist threat. If you're in Danielle Smith's cabinet, now is the time to resign. It is time to find a fucking backbone and get out of her cabinet, because it is toxic and it is threatening our livelihood. So if you really profess to care about the economy, which each of you does, today's the day to get out. And then if you're Jason Kenney or Michelle Rempel Garner, start organizing to take these to take back Alberta the right way, because this is lunacy that's being proposed, and I'm disgusted by Danielle that she's taking us into this position. It's going to hurt for a very long time, but I get to organize. Those are the things that I would do.
Add in on that.
Yeah, I'll add another one, because I almost made it seem like that there's no role for the NDP. In fact, let me be very crass about it. There is opportunity here for the NDP, not just if other conservatives start organizing against it and they get some of that drift, but also the NDP knows that any election, whether under normal circumstances or tied to fucking a referendum on separation, is going to be coming back to the NDP's credibility on economic management. And this is a time to talk about economic risk and stability. This is a time to take leadership on that. While one does not care about that, you actually do. You care about the issues people care about. You're still the party driving the day-to-day issues. Economic management, economic risk, economic stability, etc. You're kind of borrowing a bit from the Carney playbook. You're not wearing any of the liberal red, but you're talking about those things. You're also building strange coalitions yourself. This is a time where this question has an opportunity where hand-holding between mainstream conservatives and center-left Alberta New Democrats is possible. And for the sake of the province, there is opportunity there. So if folks are looking at where they're contributing their time, energy, and resources, the Alberta NDP do absolutely have a role. I think a very significant one that helps both their electoral opportunity. Because to be clear, this is not like, even though Carter and I are concerned about this, it's not a natural winner, right? Like, to be clear, it will take some molding, it'll take some opportunity, but we can see the dots on the board in terms of what those look like. The NDP still have the better argument here. They still have the Canadian unification argument. They have opportunity to help their future selves here. They have an opportunity to build that broad-based coalition, to hold hands with folks that would not necessarily be in the tent and look at that as a good thing. And I think that's an opportunity for folks to say, if you had any fucking doubt in your mind, and this is my most partisan thing I'll say on this episode, which of the two mainstream Alberta political parties represents Alberta? Here is your answer. It's literally right in front of you.
What should Polyev do? And I say that in the sense that he will be running for
Honestly,
a seat.
retire. Honestly, retire at this point.
But in this issue, he'll be running for a seat in Alberta. You mentioned his name at the top when we were talking about this. But what's strategically, where does this put him with Conservatives in Alberta and Smith?
Well, he has the opportunity to actually run as a patriotic Canadian, and
he does.
He did that with saying, Canada's worth fighting for, stealing blatantly Corey Hogan's slogan. But nonetheless, it's a tremendous opportunity for him to stand apart from Danielle Smith. There is no love lost between Danielle Smith's team and Pierre Poilievre's team. They are not the same team. Pierre Poilievre can, I think, really redefine what conservatism looks and feels like in the province of Alberta by coming in and trying to win Battle River. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah,
but I think you might get there.
Really tough.
There is opportunity here for Poilievre. There is massive political opportunity here.
Walk me
As
to
Houston and Ford have come out and told Poilievre that he was not listening and he didn't consider their version of conservatism to be conservatism, i.e. progressive conservatism, there is an opportunity to quite literally take a fringe right-wing conservative movement in this province and say, fuck you, actually you're not conservatism, and define yourself as Pierre Poilievre as what you consider to be a more moderate approach. Look how moderate Jason Kenney is looking to us right now. Right? Like, seriously though,
100%.
Jason Kenney was the most
100%,
right-wing thing that happened to our province in was it 2018, 2019?
19.
Holy George Bush.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a George Bushification of Jason Kenney happening. Pierre Poilievre has the opportunity to take a clear unifying stance against separatism, address the grievances of Albertans, but also know that fuck you. If you give me 10 less points next election, I don't care. I'm taking a stance around what conservatism is. And frankly, he could be one of those leaders in that conservative movement against separation, whether it's with a bit of distance or frankly going right into it, and understanding that growth in the 905, where he still has made growth but needs more, growth in the Atlantic provinces, growth in British Columbia, is not going to be giving this any oxygen whatsoever. And in fact, you will be rewarded if you cool down these separatist sentiments or quash them. To me, despite him saying retired, there's political opportunity here. He could also be the guy that helps unify some of these business forces, positions these conservatives and position conservatives overall as this national cohesion party. So there's upside here for Poilievre. The question is, per that video, has he thought? Has he changed? Has he been able to reflect fast enough? There are people in our lives politically that have thought, changed, reflected, moved on, been different versions of themselves. Is Pierre Poilievre one of them?
Good question. Lastly on this one, what about, and Carter, you mentioned kind of upcoming municipal elections across Alberta, but mayors, municipalities, councillors, people who want to be in these positions, even chambers of commerce and stuff, what should folks, and is it just coming out and saying this is nuts, this is dangerous, trying to put a stop to it that way? What would you recommend for these folks?
I think that you need to make this very clear, and that the selfish nature of the voter needs to be understood. This is going to cost so much. And I'm not just talking money. I'm talking about international standing, the ability, who would be our major trading partner? It would be Canada and the United States. We'd be landlocked to get to anywhere else. Do you think Canada is going to let us send our oil without putting a tariff on it? Why would they? If we separated, the cost of separation for the average Albertan would be staggering. And I'd like to see every municipal politician come out and say that they're for Canada. I'd like to see every Chamber of Commerce say that they're for Canada. I'd like to explain what their instant ramifications are. And I'd like to see head offices start to say, you know what, if we are a Canadian company, we're not just an Alberta company.
Okay. Zain, anything you'd like to see from those folks?
Carter covered it all.
Okay, guys, let's move into a quick lightning round. Zain, you mentioned it, the video, Poilievre's walk and talk video. Does it strike the right tone?
I want proof that it wasn't a green screen.
Carter,
I want proof.
does it
Deliver proof.
Does it strike the right tone? Is it a green
it.
screen? Love it.
Never loved it more. It's not a green screen. It's the best video in the history of mankind.
Okay, next lightning round question. The NDP, federal NDP, Carter. Now what for the federal NDP?
Close up shop. Don't even bother running a leadership. Give the 7 MPs to the Liberal Party so that they can have a majority government. Problem solved.
Bold words. Zain, what next for the federal NDP?
Just exactly the fucking opposite of what Carter said. Run a leadership race. Keep your MPs. Mark Carney, as much as I like him, and especially am very glad he's our prime minister for what I saw today, is going to leave room on the left and the center left. You have a place in this national conversation. It will take a while for you to get there, but we have seen with the right leader, anything can happen. Go leader shopping. Look far, look broad, even look outside. There's a world for the NDP in a big way. Carter doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Okay, on that note, that is a wrap on episode 1867 of The Strategist. I'm your host, Annalise Klingbeil, with you, as always, tonight with Stephen Carter and Zain Velji.